Hey everyone, welcome to Tales from the Pros. And this is Michael Giorgio, your host and co-founder of Imaginovation. My special guest with me here today is a SaaS pioneer that was recently named InsideSales Sales Development Thought Leader of the Year, serial entrepreneur, and co-founder of Outbound Works, which automates the sales development process for B2B companies. This is Tales from the Pros, where business leaders and influencers share their stories of inspiration, struggles, and successes. And I'm your host, Michael Giorgio. Please welcome Ben Sardella. Ben, it's great having you here today, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to connect, and I know we're all super busy, man. So thanks again. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ben, just kind of kick things off. First off, I really love your product and what it does and who you guys are and how you started and all that. And I want to learn more about that. But first, kind of tell me more about your entrepreneurial journey and your story.
Yeah. So I had the fortune of finding myself in a bar in San Francisco during my spring break on my senior year. I went to Boston University and came out here to San Francisco with my roommate, and about midway through the evening, everyone at the bar knew I was Ben from Boston, and my roommate's aunt and her roommate were there, and her roommate was the head of sales, marketing, and business development at NetLedger, which became NetSuite. And she looked at me that night and said, "I need someone like you to come work for me." And I said, "Oh, you're crazy. I'm never moving to California. I'm a Boston boy, born and bred." And I said, "I got a job at Fidelity lined up when I graduate." And she said, "How much are they going to pay you?" And then I told her, she said, "I'll double it and give you stock options." And I said, "Well, hey, I'll come out to California for 6 months, see how this works, see what happens." And 6 years later, I had opened up NetSuite's UK and Toronto offices. I had a great run. I had been the all-time leading sales rep there for a number of years, and they went on to have a really successful IPO, and that was the launch of my career. So I got really lucky there. But I realized something pretty quickly, that if you're not sort of very early on and well established in your career, and those two things combined with all the luck needed to be a part of a rocket ship or a unicorn or whatever they call them nowadays, then you're probably not going to have the type of outcome that will be life altering, so to speak, and financially. And so I said, well, you know what? I want to do two things. One, I want to have that happen. And two, I want to make a difference in this space. And so I sort of started to go down the path of moving up the ladder, as well as really starting to think of ideas on how to start a company and getting that access to entrepreneurs that are successful at it. That culminated into my first VP of sales gig at Kiss Metrics, where I got to work with Heaton Shah and Neil Patel, which are very famous in the technology entrepreneur scene.
Oh yeah.
Really got to work with them, next to them for a couple of years, see what they were doing. And while I was there, I met my co-founder from Datanyze, and so we had taken Datanyze and then sort of incubated it within, well, not incubated, but sort of tested it out within my sales team to see if this would work in the real world, and it did. And I ended up eventually peeling off from Kiss and going full time into Datanyze from there. And Datanyze, we really focused on technographics, who was using what technology, really introducing that into the sales stack for technology sales folks. And over time, we had 50, 60,000 sales development reps using the tools we built, and Datanyze was just acquired recently by ZoomInfo. So it was a positive experience. But out of that was when I really found the next challenge, which was going and building Outbound Works, which I'm all in on now.
That's cool. So you kind of combine your experience of just sales and with data, right? And that's how you kind of came up with Outbound Works. And tell us a little bit about Outbound Works. What was the main reason behind Outbound Works? Did you felt there were some gray areas within the sales cycle, sales development? How did that kind of come about?
I mean, even more than that, I had sort of an interesting perspective being at Datanyze. We had, again, we had 50, 60,000 folks using the tools we built. And we were just seeing an unbelievable amount of user turnover and migration. And what I mean by that is users would leave and come back, and they would have different aliases, and you can map them to the same social profiles and see there were a lot of the same people that were coming and going. But this was happening at such an amazing pace, and I had just this really good bird's eye view of user data from that perspective. And then at the same time, I had my own sales development team of 10 to 15 reps. I was seeing a couple of classes come in and out as we would promote and hire up, or make changes, and new folks coming in. And the first class was phenomenal. They all found great spots in our company out of sales development, whether it was marketing or customer success or sales or leadership. But as we started to bring in more and more, things started to change a little bit. And I wasn't sure if it was just us and what we were doing, or things that, we had failed to do some things. And so I had those two perspectives, and then I ended up polling a bunch of sales leaders I know, and I got back hundreds of results from the polls I did. And that, combined with research I started to do, made me realize, well, wait, the sales development space has grown. LinkedIn has it as their third fastest growing job market as of 2017, 5.7x. So a massively growing market where all of these tools are being introduced. So the cost to manage those teams are skyrocketing. And attrition all of a sudden is now at an all-time high, somewhere around 40%. When you have a market that grows that fast, basically all the talent washes up, and you're bringing in only folks just from college. So it's really normal to mishire. And the other side of it is, if you hire perfectly, those folks don't want to be in that role after 12 months. So here you are with a massive problem that's only getting bigger and bigger. Technology is now, at the point where a lot of what these folks are doing can actually be automated. And at the same time, there weren't really any other options out there to solve for this. The only other option was outsourcing. And 100% of the folks I polled had problems with outsourcing in the past. I personally had multiple negative experiences with outsourcing sales development. And so that was kind of my aha moment. And I think for every entrepreneur, you need that moment to say, look, is everything coming together here where I can influence some of it, but the market's actually doing most of the influencing, and timing's right. And when all those things come together, and then you can build the right team around that and the right technology, then that's that moment when you say, hey, I got to go for this. And that's what I did with Outbound Works.
That's awesome. So, that's the thing. I really love what you guys are doing, because I mean, I've managed sales reps as well. And with sales reps, like you mentioned, it's not essentially nothing against them at all. I know there's a lot of, these guys are hard. A lot of them they can be really hard workers and very intelligent, and there's a lot of grind to the job. But the thing is that it's not really a long-term, no one's going to be a sales rep for a long time type of thing, right? They're always trying to move up, right? Into like an account executive and all that. Am I kind of heading the right direction here, right? So the thing is with them is that
Development, yep.
there's going to be essentially a lot of turnover with those kinds of jobs. So you guys are really solving that problem and automating it, and really allowing sales teams to focus on what is most important, right? Is really closing the deal and building those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key is, how do you do that, but do it in a high quality way? I think the problem that we've had now in sales development for quite some time is that, one, a lot of great tools have been built and brought into the market now. I mean, you've got your outreach IOs, you've got your sales lofts, you've got all these great data tools that are out there now. There's tools that essentially do all the calendaring for you, Chili Piper or Calendly, and there's all kinds of things that are out there, right, optimizing at different various points of the process. But what they've optimized for is to do things in mass. And where we've fallen short is, how do we do things in a high quality way in mass? And that's what we've been able to I won't say master, but that's what we've been focusing on. So we have the ability to essentially personalize at scale. And when you do that, one, we focus really hardcore on the ideal customer profile and the key personas of our customers. So we don't waste time trying to engage folks that aren't going to be the perfect customer for them anyways. And then from there, we only source the right type of data to make sure it's accurate. So we're not wasting a lot of time sending emails that are never going to get delivered in the first place. And then we focus on the messaging side of it and make sure that one, the messaging's cohesive and it's not, too much to read. It's not too little to not get what they're doing, but it fits that middle ground. And then our personalization engine takes over, and we are able to map for every AE that we support. So we're not an Iron Man suit to turn an SDR into a superhero. We're supporting the AE directly. And so when we send an email on behalf of an AE to their future customer, our system automatically finds all the common connections between that AE and that recipient. And then we're able to reference that connection and drop that into the opening line of an email to that recipient. So when a recipient gets this, they say, oh, look, this person knows someone I know. They went to the same school. They're from the same town. They worked at the same place I worked at. All those things are highly personalized that would take an SDR 20 minutes or so to research and write. And the reality is they're not going to do that when you put these ridiculous volume goals, in front of them. It's just not
Especially
possible.
at a mass.
Yeah, exactly. So we're able to do that in mass. And I think that's the key is how do you then take this automation and do these things at scale, but do it in a highly personalized way? And whether it's us or some other companies or multiple companies in our space, the companies that figure that out are going to be the ones that are going to have a good story to tell later on in the future.
Absolutely. And I see, your product is also built using AI technology and, and machine learning. Well, do you think Ben, do you think this will completely replace, essentially completely replace the human sales rep? I mean, where do you think the human sales reps are essentially falling short?
So I think that where AI and machine learning and that sort of thing will inevitably fall short is actually having the conversation and building rapport and having empathy. There's a talk track I've been sort of going down the line with this year because part of what we're doing, of course, is replacing some of the efforts of the humans. And my way to give back is to give them the playbook on how to not be replaced because I believe in really healthy competition, and I also care about the sales community, and I want them to thrive.
Yeah.
And so I have sort of 4 areas that I say a salesperson should focus on. One is relationships. You're never going to have a relationship with a computer, or you shouldn't. That would be weird.
Yeah.
Second one is empathy. And being empathetic at the point where your prospect really needs you and you're really understanding what they're going through and how to address their needs specifically in an altruistic way is, again, something that a piece of software is just not going to do. Being adaptable is another thing. Every single sales process, you're going to have to be adaptable as a sales rep. Things are going to come up. There's never a point where step 1, 2, and 3, and 4 and 5 are done over and over again. It's always step 1, 2, 5, 4, 3, and that sort of thing. So you got to be able to do that. And then the last thing is, I think the real good folks in sales have leadership qualities. And so they're able to sort of take the industry, to take content, take best practices, and they're able to drag that, across the finish line and be a leader and have others follow behind them. And your prospects will follow behind you as well if they believe what you're doing. And I think those are the pillars that if a sales rep focuses on, they're not going to be replaced anytime soon by AI and that sort of thing. But if you're talking about sending personalized emails, if you're talking about finding the right type of customers, if you're talking about figuring out when someone's in market and you should engage with them and all that stuff, that's all AI's game, and you shouldn't be focusing on those things. You should be focusing on the soft skills that won't be replaced anytime soon.
I really love, Ben, what you just said there a minute ago in regards to empathy and leadership. I think the a big problem with and I've been in sales for a long time as well, as I've noticed this is essentially a lot of, and I don't think just this goes for salespeople. I think even a lot of other positions in companies, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that empathy is not utilized as much as it should. I think a lot of us are so focused on that dollar, on making money and generating the ROI and just closing that deal, and we're not thinking. And this is a very general statement, but we're not thinking really about the feelings of these other people and providing that value. And I think with your tool and your product, what you guys are doing is you're solving a huge problem. And that's the thing, is that you're eliminating these manual efforts of us of salespeople really just going and sending these emails, doing this grunt work that are like, oh, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like I actually want to go out there and get to know people, and sit down with them, have a coffee, and get to learn about these people and how I can help them and how they can help me and my company as well, and have that benefit on both ends. And it seems like with your product, you're eliminating a lot of these manual efforts and providing that automation, which is great. Because I think you're in technology, man. You've been doing this a long time, right? And I know we always get these questions, especially with me and my company, that they would say, "Oh, but is AI going to replace humans? Is it going to replace human efforts and jobs?" And I think we just got to understand that we just have to learn how to adapt.
Yep.
And with it was like the internet years and years and years ago. Everyone was so scared of the internet arising. They're like, oh my god, the internet, it's going to be scary. People were even talking about the world ending and stuff. Do you remember those days? I mean, it was crazy, these crazy things happening.
Yep.
And I think it's the same. We're going through the same change right now with artificial intelligence and machine learning, deep learning. And I think we just have to adapt. And with your product, you guys are doing big things, and that's why it seems like you're receiving crazy positive engagement and funding. Even you guys just receiving rounds of funding, and these investors are seeing the value that you guys are providing to other people, and just providing this effective automation. And I think that's going to increase opportunities for salespeople to basically learn how to become better in regards to having conversations with people and building these long-term relationships. That's what actually matters in business,
Yeah,
at least my
absolutely.
opinion.
And I think the other thing to remember in sales, we always place the emphasis on the sales process, and it's unnatural for us to consider the buying process in this regard as well. And so, it's important to remember the buying process, what a customer or a potential customer is going to go through, and how they want to be sold to, how they want to buy, how they want to experience the selection process and all of that. And it would be naive for us to think it's going to stay the same. And so, if the buying process changes dramatically, and buyers are open to being sold through automation and AI, and only that, and they don't want to engage anymore with reps, then that's going to significantly change the outcome of the future of salespeople as well. And so it's on us as salespeople to make that experience positive for them, to do it in a way where we put the customer in front of our own goals. And if we do those things and we build great relationships with them and we're delivering value for them, well, you know what? They're going to move on to other jobs in 2 years, and they're going to come back and buy from you again and again. But if we're doing things that are, not with their best intentions in mind, and we're just trying to automate everything right away out of the gate, and we're not taking into account that there's two sides to this, then we're going to have some backlash, and people are going to not want to talk to salespeople ever again. And we're seeing that in some areas. But that's a big part of this as well.
Yeah. And I mean, your experience, Ben, like, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes or even challenges that not only sales reps make, but salespeople in general make when trying to generate qualified leads and prospects? Like, what have you kind of experienced, even just by leveraging data that you've gotten?
Yeah, I think that there are, there's a saying that my co-founder Brian says, that there's no such thing as a good metric, because as soon as it becomes a good one, it's no longer good. And so we focus a lot of attention on some of these metrics that really aren't all that important. Look, we're in baseball playoff season right now, and it's funny to see batting average is still such a huge metric, but the reality is that actually doesn't have a real impact, as we've all found through Moneyball and all that stuff, that it's there. But we all still, as a society, love batting average. Excuse me. If you're a baseball fan, it's still a really important metric to look at. And it's similar in sales when we're talking about things like, oh, I want to see how many emails were opened. Well, you know what? A really audacious subject header is going to get a lot of open rates, but it doesn't mean that anyone's going to respond. You could send a really bad offensive email and you're going to get a lot of responses. They're just going to all be negative. So response rate might not actually matter either. So there's all kinds of metrics that we've been sort of programmed to follow. And of course, volume being the most notorious one, that really gets us off the mark of what really matters. And what really matters as salespeople is that we're hitting the goals that we have in front of us, but how we get there is something that isn't being scrutinized enough. And so it's by nature we say, oh, we need more, right? We're all consumers. We need more. We need more leads. We need, we need bigger companies to go sell to. We need to close bigger deals, and we need to keep hitting our bigger goals that are put in front of us every year. What the majority of us as sales leaders don't do is say, how do I increase my conversion rate when I work with these types of companies? What happens, how do I shorten the time frame in which a deal closes? And why is that important?
Mhm.
Well, if you think about it, if you can shorten your deal size in half, you're going to need a lot less deals that particular year, because a lot of those deals are actually going to fall into the next year. So when you start to look at those types of metrics, you start to optimize for the right type of behavior, which means high quality, putting a lot of emphasis and effort into engaging the right type of customers, and cutting down the wasted amount of time that we spend as salespeople, which, by the way, is probably 70% of the time salespeople spend is wasted effort. So we're starting to see a little bit of a movement with this in the account-based sort of revolution that's happening, so to speak. I think anybody that's been fairly good at their role over the last couple decades has always taken an account-based approach, but we're starting to see that happen more and more, and the ability to do that's become easier with more access to real good data and that sort of thing. But those are the areas where I feel like we fall short, is really focusing on the right types of metrics, at least the ones that are right now, and really optimizing for quality and higher levels of bigger impacts rather than higher volumes of things that are just going to lead us to wasting a lot more time, everyone's time, our time as well as the prospect's time.
Yeah, and kind of jumping a little into artificial intelligence again and AI. I mean, do you think, Ben, that it can? I know we dabbled a little bit, talked a little bit about this before, but in regards to, do you think that AI can completely replace the effort of just lead generation in general and closing the deal, or do you still think that there needs a human's personal touch? I think you jumped into this a little bit, but I kind of want to get more into it.
Yeah, I think it's important that we break out sales development with sales, right? First. So, if we're bringing in the lead and going all the way up to the appointment level, I do think the majority of that is going to be replaced. If we're talking about working with a prospect in a, middle of the funnel to close, I don't think that's going to be replaced anytime soon. These are really important decisions. There's a lot on the line when you make a big purchasing decision for a piece of software, technology, or service. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. I do think that AI will support those, both the buyer and the seller, to make better decisions and to do that in a much more consolidated way. But when it comes to sales development, I do think a lot of that's actually going to be replaced. Now, the reality is most buyers don't even have phones on their desks anymore. So actually
Yeah.
being able to get someone on the phone and having a conversation at the stage where they're not even sure they want to even talk to you, or they don't know anything about you or anything like that, I would say that the phone is not dead, but and certainly a lot of folks are saying, oh, well, phone now is back, and because people get so few calls than they used to. But the reality is, it's really hard to get someone's cell phone number nowadays, and if they don't have a phone on their desk, how are you going to get a hold of them? And so I think it depends on which market you're talking about, which type of buyer. All those will shift. But when it comes to email, I think the time where it will happen will be, and this is what we're focused on at our core at Outbound Works, is not just hitting someone with a personalized email and doing that en masse, but hitting someone with a personalized email and only targeting those that are actually in market at the time. They're ready to make a buying decision, and that's the thing we're working on now. And I think when you start engaging companies that are open to actually making a decision in the near term on the type of technology or service you have, and you're only focused on those, what that means for the whole industry, that means everybody's getting less email, everybody's getting hit, a lot less in volume. And so that means the impact that an email will have, or a Slack message, or some other form of communication that hasn't been developed yet, will be one of the top things in the next 5 years. Whatever that may be, I think those things start to have a more significant impact when the overall volume of things we get becomes less and less, and that's going to require a company to a process and an industry to only target folks when they're actually ready to make a decision on something like this.
Yeah, because if you think about it, how many emails do we get that are so untargeted?
Yep,
you know, you
exactly.
you receive an email and it's just like I'll have competitors sending me emails asking whether that we want development. I'm like, do you realize that I own a development shop with over 30 programmers? Did you do
I get
research
the same thing
before you
for
contacting
I
me?
get the same thing for sales development all the time. I'm like, are you kidding me? You want me to use your sales development when we do what we do? And the fact that you're sending me this email already tells me your program sucks.
Oh, it's crazy, man. No, it's just yeah. I think with more targeted, personalized approach, I think it's going to really help. I think just business in general. To be honest, I really think it's gonna eliminate a lot of time wasting and money and resources and things that we're just spending so much money on. You know what I mean? As you as an owner of a company, you're hiring people, and it's gonna just eliminate so much of your time, right? And just yeah, I think it's gonna do wonders, man. So I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. I think it's gonna do great things in the market. So, jumping a little bit here, Ben, I know for the research I've done on you, you're a serial entrepreneur. You've owned successful companies and sold them and been in business for quite some time. What have been some of your toughest struggles you faced during your journey to now? And how did you essentially overcome them? Because we know that being an owner, being an entrepreneur is not easy. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Everyone wants to, it's the thing nowadays, right? You live in you're in a techie area in California, right? So you understand this what I'm talking about here. Everyone wants to be somebody big. Everyone wants to own something and cash out and all this mumbo jumbo that you hear about, but some of them aren't willing to put in the work and grind it out and go through these struggles and obstacles.
Yep.
Did you guys face some, or you and your team face some really tough challenges over the years?
Oh, of course. I mean, there's always challenges you're going to face. There's probably too many to even scratch the surface on the things that are going to happen. And based on your company and what you do, it can be anything from an internal challenge to challenges with customers to challenges with third parties that you may rely on that aren't going to be friendly with you, and you're going to face issues with that. But you know what, I will break it all the way down to something very basic that I don't hear a lot of entrepreneurs really talk about, and one was kind of important for me. So I grew up, we didn't have a ton of money growing up. I paid my own way through college. When I got out of college, I had a ton of debt. I then jumped right into a tech career where I was making really good money, but didn't make the conscious decision to pay off all my debt as quickly as possible. I like to have fun and experiences and travel and all that stuff. And once I got to that point where I was like, yeah, I want to really be an entrepreneur now, and now's my time to like go start something. And what I was finding was that my personal decisions to not pay off all my debt, not personally put myself in a position where I reduced as much potential distractions and stress and that sort of thing out of my life, so that I could focus solely on my business and make the right decisions for my career and for my business and for equity purposes and kind of all those things. I was always being anchored by having debt. And so one of the things I decided as we started Outbound Works is the first thing I was going to do is 100% pay off all my debt. So that way I would never worry about, hey, if I get to take a little bit less money because the company actually, needs more money and we need to invest in certain things. And so I can take a cut or, that sort of thing. Um, that for me has been really transformative, and it seems so basic and silly, but it's actually really, really important. And, having, everybody says have work life balance. The reality is that's almost impossible as an entrepreneur. You're going to find yourself answering emails in the middle of the night. You're going to, get up early. You're going to work crazy hours. You're going to have friendships that you don't put any time into for a couple of years. You're going to have family members that don't know if you're where you live and if you're alive or not and all that stuff. It's going to happen. Your mom's going to give you a hard time. Um, you know, but like if so all those things are just going to happen. You can do your best at managing those things. The reality is the business is going to, if you're doing well, it's going to take you in lots of different directions. And if you're not doing well, you're going to be stressed out a lot and you're going to be putting a lot of work and effort into it regardless. So my thing would be reduce any areas of stress or barriers or anything like that. So something like a debt or anything, that you can imagine, whether it's your living situation, whether it's your whatever it may be. Remove as many of those as possible before you launch a company, because your company will become all consuming. And if you have these other things that are almost immovable, they're going to cause they're going to seem a lot bigger than they actually are once you're really in the heat of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I mean, I think you you were pretty direct in your answer. I mean, it's hard to have that work life balance. I mean, I think it's important, but as you're building a company, man, I mean, it's like, think about it this way, right? You talk to these Olympic athletes, and they make so many sacrifices to get to where they are, right? And when you're trying to leave a legacy and you're trying to do something huge in your life, you're gonna have to make sacrifices. I'm not saying that never spend time with your family and friends. Of course, you need to. I mean, family is the most important thing, but at the same time, it's very important to be realistic and set the right expectations mentally, and understand that it's going to be tough and there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to do for quite some time to reach that level that you want to reach, and achieve your goals and leave the legacies that you want to leave, and I think that's just what it takes. I think you hit the spot, man. But
Yep.
so just to kind of close things out, then, I always ask the three hows, and I always ask, how do you define failure? How do you define entrepreneurship, and how do you define success? So all interviewees have some have similar answers, but a lot have had very, very different answers. So I'm kind of curious to see what you would say here for failure, entrepreneurship, and success.
Yeah, I think a lot of people focus on failure as like not achieving their goals. And we're all easily subject to that when, we put these crazy goals in front of us. And as entrepreneurs, we're all probably putting really lofty goals in front of us with the expectation that, hey, even if we fall short, we've still done something pretty amazing. I would carve out the aspect that if you fail from hitting your goals, but you learned something, and that something you learned is something that can be used in the future, you've actually gained something significant, really, really valuable. And probably, as we mature in our careers, those problems or those failures become more and more expensive problems to have, or bigger problems to have, or more strategic problems to have. So, learning those things early on, it's good to fail, like they say all the time. Fail early, fail often, but you got to learn from it. And if you fail to learn from it, then that's really where the failure is. And so that's what I would identify as failure. If you get tricked at the same thing twice, or you keep going down the same path and didn't learn from that the first time, then that's on you. So that's what I would consider failure. Your second one was, how do I define success, or what?
Entrepreneurship and then success.
Entrepreneurship. Okay. And success. So entrepreneurship, um, I define as being able to find a problem, come up with a solution for that problem, and doing it on your own terms. And, I think that's what we do as entrepreneurs. I don't think you need to be successful to be an entrepreneur. I don't think if you fail at 5, 6 companies, you're not an entrepreneur anymore. I think it's having the will to, find a problem, build a solution around that, and then, again, do it on your own terms, whether it's you decide you want to go raise a ton of money and try to build as big of a company as you can, or whether you want to keep a bootstrapped, profitable company and sort of run it really small and lean. I think that's where it's at its essence. And success to me, I'll keep it business wise. I mean, we all have personal successes, and that's for someone else to decide what theirs is on a personal front. I would say that I've had challenges sort of keeping those separate. So, I've got to be successful business wise to be successful personally. And I'm starting to be mature enough to actually separate those and keep those in their own worlds. But from a business perspective, I see success as making your customers successful. And if you do that, then everything else falls into place. If you're out there and you're building something and all of a sudden customers are realizing real value out of it and they're really happy, what's going to happen in return? Your business is going to grow. You're going to be able to hire more people. You're going to be able to grow more careers. You're going to be able to build really great relationships and continue to build value along the way. So that's the way I see it.
Selfless approach. That's how it should be, right?
Yep.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing all that with us. And where can everyone find you?
Sure. So find me on LinkedIn, Ben Sardella. I'm one of the only ones up there. I should pop up to the top. On Twitter, at Ben Sardella. And you can go check out our website, outboundworks.com.
Perfect, man. Thank you very much, Ben, for sharing your story with us. I'm very thankful. And I know you're a super busy guy, man. So really, really, really appreciate your time.
No problem. It was fun. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And this is your host, Michael Giorgio on Tales from the Pros. And until next time. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also follow our social media. There are links somewhere around here. But we really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the support. And I'm going to be giving you awesome content continuously. And we look forward to seeing you soon.